Good evening, Texas. Good evening, Houston, and good morning, Philippines. Welcome to Legal Treats. My name is Aileen Ligot Dizon. I'm an attorney licensed here in the state of Texas, and with me here tonight is Neska.
Yes, so welcome to Legal Treats with Attorney Eileen. It's a beautiful Friday morning here from the Philippines. I am Nesca and I am joining Attorney Eileen for today's episode. This production is proudly brought to us by Lawin Media Network. We are currently live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, so be sure to join us every 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. And if you missed us live, don't worry. You can catch the replay on over 15 podcast platforms, including Spotify, Google, Amazon, Apple, and more. So stay tuned and stay engaged.
That's right. And by the way, we started late today.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, just a little bit of technical issue there, but we're good. So we're gonna spend a little bit today just to cover our time, right, Neska?
Yes, Attorney Aileen, this is a series of episodes that we're tackling domestic abuse. In our previous episodes, we discussed various forms of abuse in general, and we also specifically discussed physical and emotional abuse. So, for today's episode, we're going to focus on economic abuse. We'll define economic abuse, we'll talk about real life cases, and most importantly, we discuss how the law can help these victims. We also provide information on how to seek help if you or someone you know is experiencing economic abuse. So stay tuned as we break it all down.
All right. So I don't think we have a video to show tonight, right? But that's
Yes.
okay. We can talk about the issue and we can actually relate it to real cases, just like what Nesca mentioned earlier. Kaya tune in lang kayo. And if you have any questions, comments, or shout outs, feel free to post that on the comment box and we will read them throughout the show and we'll try to answer your questions as well. And if ever you missed the live show, definitely you can always go back and watch the recorded. So like and subscribe. Subscribe to Lobby Media Network Facebook page and YouTube channel. All right, so
Yeah.
we can start.
Yes, Attorney Aileen. So let's dive into it.
I know, by the way, pala, sorry last time I missed the show, but I watched the recorded, and yeah, our two ladies they did a great job talking about the issue on emotional abuse. So if you have any more questions about that topic, feel free to send us a message. But yeah, they did a great job.
Yeah. Thank you, Attorney Aileen. But it's really different if you are on the show.
Well, you did a great job, like I said. So they
Mhm.
probably didn't really miss me a lot last time, but yeah, definitely, I would love to be on the show all the time, so I can share legal knowledge and experience and whatever information you can share here. Also, please feel free to share it because you're getting them for free here. This is our advocacy. This is our public service. So yeah, let's go ahead and talk about our topic for tonight.
Which is economic abuse. So, Attorney Eileen, what exactly is economic abuse?
Well, from the word economic, it involves financial matters, right?
Mhm.
Finances. So, in when we relate that to domestic abuse, and why is it that we consider economic abuse as part of domestic abuse? Because definitely in a marriage, especially here in Texas, we are community property. I believe Philippines the same thing too. It's a community. I think it's you use the term conjugal, which is the same as community property. And there are other states here in the U.S. that follow community property. So if we say community property in Texas, this means that all the assets acquired, purchased, received by the spouses during the marriage. So basically, ang concept niyan is supposed to be equal sharing kayo 50-50 split.
Mhm.
All right. That's also the concept of conjugal. But in divorce cases here in Texas, it's not always 50-50 split. The term that we use here is just and right division of assets. So when we say just and right, we're talking about how the judge or the court will decide how to split your assets, your community property. So first thing they do is to identify if the property is community or not. And if it is community, then it will be part of the division of assets. Now, if the judge will make a decision as to how he will divide it, it could either be 50-50, who knows, or 40-60 or 30-70. It depends on some factors. And one of the factors that they will consider is abuse. Like, you know, is there a fault? Who is at fault in the marriage? So let's say, for example, this one spouse is at fault, then definitely the other spouse will get more. Kaya nga they will look into several factors, and like I said earlier, abuse, domestic abuse is one of the factors, and part of that is economic abuse or financial abuse, which means that the other spouse is taking control of the finances, abusing the use of it. And there are a lot of forms of this, and we'll talk more about that. But basically, it's just has something to do with unequal use or consumption or access to the finances of the spouses. That when we say finances, we're talking about the community assets. So not necessarily money. It also include properties, real property, not personal, but anything in the house that are considered community property, money in the bank, all of that. In general, your community property. That's why we have to define community property first.
Yeah, as you said, attorney, it's not always 50-50, right? It's just and right in your
Yes, that's
concept.
right. That's the phrase
Yeah.
that is mentioned in the law.
Oh, okay. So, attorney, what are the signs of economic abuse? How will we know that there is an economic abuse in a marriage or in a relationship?
Well, sometimes you don't realize there's already economic abuse, especially if you and your spouse has been um, partnering in terms of expenses in the house, access to money. Kasi, sometimes may isa sa spouses na better in handling money, the finances, di ba? So may isa dyan na in charge with payment of the bills. Yung isa naman, pwedeng work, 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 and work, and work, and work lang. And then the other one is the one managing the property or the money of the spouses, including payment of bills, mortgage, or whatever they pay regularly or monthly, ba? Including yung expenses nila, weekly expenses. So may ganon. So that's why sometimes it's hard to detect right away that there is an abuse happening. And sometimes hindi mo masabing abuse din talaga. Like for example, one of the spouses, siya yung may access sa bank account. Well, like, let's say pareho namang may access, but the other one really is not accessing it, and the other one is the one actually accessing the money because the other one is in charge with in paying bills. So, pinababayaan lang ng isa because there's trust, supposedly, di ba? Ngayon yung pala, the other spouse is already maybe using the funds, community property or community funds in purchasing properties that probably may not be within the knowledge of the other spouse. Now, how will that be an abuse? 'Di ba? So, meron na namang layer of just because nag-invest siya, let's say usually investment yun eh. Nag-invest siya sa ganitong business, hindi alam ng spouse niya, nagfo-flourish naman, kumikita, and whatever income pumapasok din naman sa income nila, will that be considered abuse? Pwedeng hindi, di ba? So it has, you really have to look into the factors or um, the circumstances around it. So, pwede namang nag-invest siya and then hindi alam ng other spouse na kumikita siya pero yung income naman hindi niya pinapasok sa community funds nila. Instead, nag-open siya ng bank account without the knowledge of the other spouse. Doon niya pinapasok yon, and then the other spouse is spending it with let's say luho niya or bisyo niya. That could be considered as economic abuse because then that spouse is using that money, is using community funds for personal gain and without the knowledge of the other spouse. So nagkakaroon ng disparity in terms of, wait a minute, the other spouse is not benefiting from that. So that could be considered an abuse. So there are I think it's cases specific.
Mhm.
Really you'll have to look into the surrounding factors, and circumstances around the expenditure.
Attorney, you've said earlier nang hirap nga ma-recognize, ang hirap nang malaman if there is really economic abuse in a relationship or in a marriage. But how can we really recognize economic abuse even without visible injuries? Like for example, wala naman kasi unlike sa physical abuse na merong mga pasa, merong bruises, merong wounds um, that you can prove that there's physical abuse. How about naman sa economic abuse? How will we know that there is really economic abuse?
Well, unang-una, if you're not yet in a divorce case at hindi pa yan pinag-uusapan, you probably will not recognize that.
Mm-hmm.
Kasi syempre, maasa ka sa other spouse mo na, that that other spouse is spending the money right, properly, di ba? Pero, siguro, pinaka easy to determine whether really it's an abuse kung halimbawa the other spouse ay mayroong bisyo,
Mm-hmm.
nagsusugal, at ginagamit yung money, yung community funds sa pagsusugal, against the will of the other spouse. Tapos natatalo, ibig sabihin lumalabas lang lahat yung money yung community funds. So that is one way of knowing that, oh, wait a minute, you are already economically abusing our funds, or financial abuse, economic or financial abuse. So kaya sabi ko, it may not be easy. Halimbawa, hindi naman ginagamit sa sugal, 'di ba? Could be investment. Ngayon, if the investment is good and pumapasok yung return ng investment sa community funds, then that could not be considered economic abuse. Pero pag pumapasok sa ibang funds which you may not know, that's why sometimes it's hard to detect that, unless very nosy ka na spouse and you're checking everything, or you have access to the account and you're monitoring it, then you probably will detect it. Now, if you don't have access, or if the other spouse is restricting you from accessing your finances, your bank accounts, wala, the password is not being shared with you, or purposely hindi ka talaga binibigyan ng access sa bank account ninyo, or wala kang cards, credit cards or debit cards, hindi ka binibigyan ng panggastos mo, that could be red flag na, oh, maybe there's
Mm-hmm.
already economic or financial abuse here. So like I said, but it's probably more than, you need to know more facts than just because the other spouse is not, allowing you to access that.
Yeah, so parang ang dami pala ng pwedeng ma-fall sa economic abuse. Like for example, there is restriction on the finances, no? There are withholding of money, and for example, there is also a restraining access to joint bank accounts. It can be a form of economic abuse, right, Attorney?
Yeah, it could be a red flag na baka there is an
Mhm.
economic abuse. So you have to do a little more digging, a little more investigating on that, and see if it's really nagagamit yung pera sa purposes other than for family use. Yun lang naman yun eh. Kasi even if the other spouse is really withdrawing a lot of money, but if the money is being used for the family, then I don't think that will be considered economic or financial abuse. I guess the thin line that you're looking at there is, where is the money being used or
Oh,
spent?
okay. All right. Great discussion, Attorney Aileen. Probably we only have to take a break muna, so we can discuss more later.
Yes, stick around.
Welcome to Season 2 of Beyond Health and Wellness with Dr. Rich. New season, new insights. Dr. Rich brings you the keys to unlock your best self on Beyond Health and Wellness. From nutrition to mindset, we're taking wellness to the next level. This is Season 2 of Beyond Health and Wellness. Join us every Friday 8 p.m. CST.
And we're back. All right, so Nesca.
Right. All right, nakamute pala ako. So that was so
Oh,
fast.
I know, right? Balik na tayo sa usapan natin about economic abuse. So kanina before the break, we kind of mentioned about that you have to do more investigating and digging into what's happening and where the money is going, right? Or where the money is being spent, and whether it's being used for the family or not. So yun yung dapat nilang tingnan agad if they really wanted to know.
But attorney, the economic abuse in terms of economic abuse is not just all about money, right?
That's
It's sometimes it's all about really the control. As you've said, kailangan tingnan if saan napupunta yung money, pinagsusugal ba to, or if it's for investment, na sadyang natalo lang. Um, like if one partner stops from the other from working, or they make decisions about how money is spent without the consultation, that's also a red flag, right?
that's correct. That's why the other manifestation of economic abuse is restricting the other spouse or restricting employment opportunities of the other spouse. And why do they have to? Why do they do this? Di ba dapat? O nga, mas maganda nga magtrabaho yung isang spouse para dagdag sa income, right? But then the other spouse is gonna restrict, you know what, sa bahay ka na lang, ako nang balang
Mhm.
magtrabaho, let me do the work, I'll take care of our finances, and then sa bahay ka lang. So the other spouse is then, forced to, okay, ako nang mag-asikaso sa bahay, I'll do all the work, and you do the, you look for, you do the job, work, meaning the money making work, right? So restricting the other spouse could be also a manifestation of financial or economic abuse because the other spouse really will have more control in terms of finances kasi siya yung kumikita, 'di ba? So yung
Mhm.
basically there's that the control. The other spouse, syempre, if she's just at home, will have to depend on the other spouse na kumikita to give her or him money to spend for the house. If the other spouse will just give you, okay, this is the budget for this week, pagkasyahin mo na yan. So, hindi, pwede naman palang more than that, tinitipid ka. So that's why it's a form of, it could lead to financial or economic abuse then by restricting you from, getting employed, and then controlling the budget, controlling your access to money, then yes, you're absolutely right. It's not just spending the money, but also restricting employment opportunities.
Yeah, this boils down to three terms I think na important to consider when thinking about economic abuse. First, there must be, I think, control. And then second one is, I think, there must be dependency on the other spouse, on one spouse. And then third is, I think, there is restriction, attorney, when it comes to the finances or, for example, bank accounts or for opportunities for employment. I think these three must be considered when thinking about economic
That's right.
abuse.
And why do they do this? Siyempre, tatanong mo sa sarili mo, why do I have to do this? Why is the other spouse doing this? Mas maganda nga if the other spouse is also earning money. If the other spouse is really
Mhm.
good at it, why restrict that other spouse? Um, and the what the this pattern that I see is because number one, you said control, yan, and of course the other party will lack the autonomy, and because of lack of autonomy, naging dependent yan doon sa other spouse, and because that spouse is now dependent on the other spouse, doon na nangyayari yung control and abuse. Oo, yung
Yeah.
you cannot leave this marriage even though I am mistreating you. You cannot because you are dependent on me because wala kang kita, hindi ka mabubuhay pag lumayas ka ng bahay. Yan.
Mhm. So, attorney, if a victim or someone is um, economically abused, what can he or she do if she's trapped in a financially or economically abused?
Well, first thing is, ano ba yung dahilan bakit ka na-abuse? And then, ano ba yung gusto mong mangyari?
Mhm.
So, every time I have a consultation na ganyan, I always ask, what is your goal? Is your goal, you want to end the marriage or you want to end the abuse? It's that. Of course, if you want to end the abuse, if you just want to end the economic abuse and your financial abuse but not the marriage, you gotta have to deal with it with your spouse. Makialam ka. Alamin mo, educate yourself, you know, and get a job. I mean, do not be so dependent on the other spouse because, like I said, if you're so dependent on the other spouse, well, basically think that you're not going to be able to live without its other spouse that lead to control and more abuses, right? Not necessarily financial abuse. So you have to educate yourself, make yourself use your education. um, kung ayaw mo naman magtrabaho because you are the homemaker, di ba? Makialam ka sa finances. Not totally depending on the other spouse, entirely pagbabayad ng bills, yung huwag kang pumayag na wala kang control sa finances niya or wala kang access. Now, I remember this kind of situation in one of the cases that I handled, and it involves a Filipino spouse married to a U.S. citizen. Now, that was really, kind of challenging because this is a case of the U.S. citizen spouse married a Filipina spouse and brought the Filipina to the United States. Diba? It involves family law and immigration. You know what I mean by that, right? So I remember the story of that Filipina. She was asking about um, her rights over finances. Kung meron ba siyang, actually, paano daw niya malalaman o paano niya ma-access yung pera nila sa bangko, hindi naman daw siya binibigyan ng access ng husband niya. So sabi ko, why did you ask access to your finances? Yes, pero ang sabi niya, he'll take care of everything, wala, para hindi na daw ako mamblema, asikasuhin ko lang siya, yung husband, yung misang husband, yung bahay. So basically binibigyan lang siya ng budget na okay, this is how much you're gonna be spending for this week. So other than that, hindi na siya nakakahawak ng pera. Ngayon, sabi ko, do you know your bank account? Hindi niya rin alam. Sabi ko, bakit hindi mo kunin, ayaw daw ibigay sa kanya. So sabi ko, well, it's actually more on sa inyong dalawa muna yan. Kasi, there is another way of getting that, but then you'll have to go to court and do you want that? You know? Kaya tinatanong ko, what is your goal? Ngayon, kasi minsan, pag-usapan niyo munang mag-asawa yan eh. Now, I remember yung isang similar case naman na ganyan, she said, in-approach niya and then nagalit. And then sabi, I think it's already like the reason why she went to my office because there was already a divorce. Or no, the husband was threatening her to file a divorce pagka pipilit pa niya yung gusto niya. So, I mean, that's definitely what's gonna happen. If you don't want the other spouse to continuously abuse or gain or take control over you, then probably that's where you're gonna go anyway. Divorce, especially pag ginagamit yung divorce to threaten you, like divorce kita pag nangialam ka pa o nagtanong ka pa. Now, and bakit malakas ang loob nila? Because the other spouse thinks that if dinivorce sila, papauwiin sila sa Philippines. Hindi na pa-file ang petition nila, so what's gonna happen to them? So actually, there are a lot of factors that they consider in making their decisions, and those factors really are very hard. I mean, they're very important factors. Na it makes a decision for them to do something, makes it harder for them to make a decision to leave the situation because yun nga ginagamit yun na pagtakot sa kanila. Now,
So in
yeah,
other yeah. So in other words, attorney, economic abuse really affects someone's decision making in a divorce or family law case,
yes,
right?
yes. Basically, depende sa situation nung involved na spouse. Katulad yung immigrant, 'di ba? Let's say for example,
Mhm.
nagpakasal sila, dinala siya dito, the other spouse hindi pa finailan ng petition, which means at that point kung mga 5 years or 10 years na dito yung spouse, hindi mo pa pinafilan, most likely the spouse is probably already out of status. So they use that one as a parang pang blackmail, or they threaten the other
Mm.
spouse na, okay, I'm not gonna file this if kung makikialam ka pa. So parang stay in your lane, they want to take control of the other spouse. So nangyayari tuloy, they allow this abuse to happen because of the threats.
Mm.
Um, Although, kung tutuusin, they can actually use that abuse against the other spouse to gain other immigration benefits. Case to case basis na nga lang yun. So it's best na if you're in a situation, similar situation, always the best thing to do is to consult an attorney, discuss your situation. Kahit immigrant ka pa or out of status ka, huwag kang matakot na lumapit because you don't know kung ano yung opportunity na meron sa'yo. Na merong, what available opportunities are already out there, you just don't know them because you haven't gained information about this, and you will gain that information. Siyempre, ang pinaka-best source mo ay yung expert sa ganyang field. So if it's an immigration case, you go to an immigration attorney. If it's a family law case, then you go to a family law attorney. Now, if it involves both, then look for a family law and immigration attorney at the same time.
Yeah, that's what we always tell our viewers or listeners, Attorney, that help is always everywhere. They just have to know where to get the right help and the right people to help them with their situation. And yun yung promise natin dito sa kanila, sa legal treats, that we are going to help them, especially with their family problems or divorce problems or, yeah, immigration problems here at Legal
Yeah, the other
Treats.
thing that I'd like to add to that, Nesca, because I've seen this happening, they spouses, especially yung ganyan, yung immigrant in that situation, the immigrant spouse thinks na walang masyadong help. Especially kung wala silang pambayad sa attorney nila, because of course, when you go to an attorney, when you consult like any other profession, like if you go to the dentist, if you go to the doctor, you pay their fees, right? Same thing din yan sa attorney. And I think that's one of the reasons why they don't seek out help, is because wala din silang pera, because nga they do not have access to their finances, right? To their money. So know that there are attorneys there who are willing to work with you, because there are other ways to seek uh, attorney's fees, especially if, let's say, nagkaroon na ng kaso, you file a case, and the your attorney can also seek fees from the other spouse, the at fault spouse. So, kaya just try and reach out. You'll never know kung ano yung sasabihin sa'yo. So, just don't be scared, especially if you're the victim. There will always be some help somewhere out there.
Yeah, we actually have a question here from our Facebook followers, Attorney Aileen. What if the abused spouse is a PWD
Okay, what is a PWD?
or a persons with
Okay.
disabilities?
The abused spouse, you mean, or say that again? Put that on the screen.
What if the abused is a PWD or person with disability?
Okay, well, dito kasi, it depends on what abuse are you talking about. Is this an abuse by a spouse, abuse in the house, abuse by a family member? So I think this term is being used in the Philippines. We don't really use that much term here. I think this one addressed the Philippines. So what do you say, Nesca?
If the abused spouse is is a PWD, I think, Attorney, it doesn't matter naman if he or she is a PWD, because the Philippine law naman caters to all, like we have here VAUSI, or the Violence Against Women and Children. Regardless if you're a PWD or a person with disability, you still have access and protection of the law. So yeah, I think kahit abuse yung spouse, whether he or she is a PWD, then she has a protection
Yes,
of the
and it's the
law.
same thing here in Texas. So that's why we also have here the VAWA, Violence Against Women Act, which I think is similar to VAUSI. So if you're a VAWA victim, whether you have a disability or not, it can also be, it's a crime to, if you violate that.
Mhm.
Now you can actually seek help from the police if you are being abused, no matter how kind of abuse, even if it's financial. And if you are an immigrant, you can also use that to get some immigration benefits. As a matter of fact, I had a client na she was physical, no, emotionally abused naman siya. And nagka, so the other spouse used the immigration status in the filing of the petition against the abusive spouse. Tinatakot, 'di ba? So tayo, yung abusive spouse usually natatakot naman yan because they don't know that they have other, that they can seek protection, that they can seek help. So we can file a petition, immigration petition under VAWA. So that pagka if na-approve yan, the the VAWA victim who's an immigrant, maybe out of status na, can actually get green card or legal permanent resident, which later on will may be eligible to naturalize and citizen. So like I said, you don't know kung ano yung available help, available benefits out there. So you have to seek out. You have to look for help. Call hotlines, whatever. It depends on your situation. But yeah, um, it doesn't matter whether you have a disability or not. If you are a victim of a crime, a victim of abuse, a victim of trafficking here, yes, there is a immigration benefit, and at the same time, um, if you're in a divorce case, you can also use that against the abusive spouse.
Yes, we'll discuss more legal remedies when we get back. Attorney Eileen, mag-break lang muna
All
tayo ng
right,
short
see ya.
while.
Get ready for an all-new season of Pink Table Talk with Dr. Carly D. Dive into thought-provoking conversations, empowering stories, and fresh perspectives every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Join the conversation because the table is set and your voice matters.
And we're back.
Yeah, we're back here at Legal Treats. Earlier, we've discussed some cases involving economic abuse, and we've also defined what economic abuse is. Now, we'll have to cater to questions here that we have in Facebook, like from Orly Dizon. Mr. Philippines is being abused by his spouse secretly. Can Mr. Philippines file VAWA and get immigration benefits in Texas?
Definitely, yes, is a victim of a crime. You know, when we say VAWA this time, you just don't get, you're not just talking about women only, just like also in VAUSI. The definition has already been expanded, right? It includes
Yeah.
the victims of abuses, no matter what your gender is. And when you say, I just wonder why there's the word secretly. Sa bagay, some abuses are, being done secretly outside the marriage, but inside the house, it's no longer secret, right? It's the same thing. Yeah, yeah. That's a good question. Kasi syempre nowadays, especially we also have marriages, same-sex marriages are already, allowed, legal. So yeah, that is a very no, good question because in a marriage, pag sinabi, kasi naman Mr. Philippines naman yung ano niya, example niya. So, whatever your gender is, you can be a victim of, violence, right? So yeah, that's what it is. Oh, he has a follow-up question.
Macho and body. Yeah, macho and bodybuilder is Mr. Philippines
Ano?
now. Macho and bodybuilder is Mr.
Oh,
Philippines,
okay. Well,
he
there's a
said.
question that here. Oh, can Mr. Philippines do it
Yeah.
himself? He has no money since he has no access with their bank account. Well, is Mr. Philippines located here in the United States? And when you say can do it, by himself. What do you mean by himself? Like file a case by himself? Of course he can. He is the victim. Well, he has no money since he has no access for their bank accounts. Yeah, like what I have mentioned earlier. Um, there just seek out an attorney, or consult an attorney who handles this kind of cases, because they may have some ways to help. And actually one of which is, we can also ask the fees from the other spouse. Pag napatunayan natin sa court na the other spouse is at fault, we can also ask our legal fees from the other spouse, and the court may grant it. And so kahit walang money yung client, we can pursue the case. As a matter of fact, meron na isang case lang dyan recently. Well, we finished the case in the family court. The spouse, she was an immigrant, and the other spouse is actually, well, I'm not gonna share some case specific information, but of course it's already done, so the information is already public, right? But anyway, so that spouse, she didn't have a job during that time, so wala siyang pera talaga. And then the other spouse is the one providing support. So when the other spouse cut the support, syempre wala na siyang panggastos. And when the other spouse left, abandoned her, and filed a divorce petition. So may divorce case, and syempre kailangan niya ng representation. So what happened there was a counter petition filed on her behalf, and then the legal fees is also is in other words, we're asking the legal fees from the other party, which was granted by the court at the end of the trial. The court granted the attorney's fees against the other spouse. So yeah, kaya nga sabi ko,
So
don't hesitate. Now, kung ano naman, if they are not immigrants, they are US citizen, maraming mga non-profit organizations dito na tumutulong. And they have different departments. And one of the departments na tumutulong sa kanila yung domestic violence victim department, and they can actually file a case. And they are the the litigant na walang pera. Indigent litigant, tawag doon.
yeah. So yeah, let's talk about more legal remedies, Attorney Eileen. Also here in the Philippines, we have the Anti-Violence Against Women and Children Act. It covers also the economic abuse as part of the definition of violence. This can be really important for victims who feel trapped financially. And yes, pareho sa sinabi mo, they can also seek help from like barangay offices, women's and children's protection desks here, and also some non-government organizations. They can also reach out because these NGOs also help people who are victims of abuse. And also, I think some mga city halls they have Department of Social Services na nagka-cater sa mga victims of violence here sa
Well, that's good.
Philippines.
Kaya nga, do not hesitate to seek out help if you feel like you're being abused. There's going to be some kind of help available somewhere out there. You just need to be bold and be brave enough to get out there, and find these people.
Yeah, that's one thing we always say to our listeners, that they don't have to go through this alone, because there are a lot of support systems out there to help them regain their financial independence or freedom from their abusive relationship. They just have to know where to go and who to seek help from.
Yeah, and then just to share with you, I'm not sure if I already mentioned this before. When I volunteered in a shelter when I was in Dallas area, it's a shelter where it's actually a parang secret hideout, parang ganon. They call it shelter,
Mm.
where they actually house the victims of domestic violence, so that the abuser, usually the other spouse, diba, or a family member, they're not gonna find them, so they cannot threaten them anymore. They cannot hurt them anymore. And while they are inside the shelter, there are actually some activities, programs that they provide to help the victims, to empower the victims, so that they can help themselves and gain skills if they do. Like for example, yung mga hindi nga nagtrabaho, hindi pinagtrabaho ng spouses nila, so hindi sila nakadevelop ng skills nila, di ba? So they empower them by, by helping them develop their skills so that they can find a job. Now, if they need immigration help, they also provide that. So there are a lot of nonprofit organizations. They're funded by the government, by the federal government here, and by the state. So, funds are out there. May mga non-profit organization na tumutulong because they have the capability to provide help. Yes.
So yes, in other words, if you are a victim of abuse, you just have to seek help from, like for example, start it from the people around you, your friends, your families, your relatives, or someone you trust. And if hindi sapat or hindi enough yung support na nakukuha mo from the people around you, you can go seek also professional help. You can go to a lawyer, or you can go to non-profit organizations, or here in the Philippines we call them NGOs, or non-governmental organizations, because really help is everywhere. You just have to know where to seek help.
That is correct. So that's why we are showing on the screen some hotlines that they can call if they think they are a victim of violence or of abuses. Yeah, can you please flash it a little longer so that they can see it? Yeah, so that there's a number there. The National Domestic Violence Hotline in the Philippines. That's 1-800-1022-8877. I hope I read that one right because I'm not wearing my glasses. So go ahead, Nesca, read the others. Those are a lot of numbers.
Yeah. For Gender Watch Against Violence and Exploitation, or GWAVE Philippines, they may call 422-8405 or 0915-259-3029. We also have 0999-576-6679, and that's for the Philippines. National Domestic Violence Hotline also 1-800-799 SAFE 7233. Also, as we've said earlier, yun sa housing, a child or children can also be a victim of child abuse. So they may also call Bantay Bata 163. It's a 24/7 helpline for children and women, or also emergency 911 here in the
Yes.
Philippines.
And in the US, of course, 911, di ba? Always 911.
Yeah.
Okay, so wow, this is a really very interesting topic. Sometimes economic abuse is overlooked all the time because sometimes you don't even know you are a victim of economic abuse. Especially karamihan sa mga nagwo-work, like I said, meron sa isa sa inyo na in charge with the finances, and you put your trust that person kasi spouse mo naman, 'di ba? So but it's always a good practice to check from time to time, or at least make sure you have access to your bank accounts. And that's because it's not because maybe this is useful during divorce. This could also be useful in terms of, let's say for example, the other spouse suddenly pass away. So paano ka na, 'di ba? You should know how to access. You should know how to, where are your funds, where are your money, where are your properties, you know? Now, here kasi in the US, a spouse can buy a property without the knowledge of the other spouse, because they can just enter into the agreement by themselves. But I know in the Philippines, if you're married, if you're married, you're married to somebody, and you buy property, especially real property. You'll have to declare that one, and sometimes, do they need? By the way, do they need the signature of the spouse? They just need the name, right?
Yes, attorney, especially if it's for
Mm-hmm.
sale. I mean, it's for
Or
conveyance
if the
or
married,
transfer of
yeah, if the
property.
married spouse, they're the one selling it, so syempre kailangan ng consent ng other
Yeah.
spouse. That's right. So hindi mo
Yes.
basta-basta mabebenta 'yon, 'di ba? So yun yung
Yes, Atty.
all right. So anyway, if you have any questions related to our topic today and you didn't have a chance to post your comment because you're watching this you're watching the recorded live show, feel free to still post your comment. And whenever we get a chance to look into that, we can probably read the question and answer it when we see you next Friday for our next episode of Legal Treats, because Legal Treats, we are live every Friday, 6:30 p.m. Central Time. That will be Saturday, 8:30 a.m. in the Philippines, right?
Yes, we have a very fruitful discussion today, discussing economic abuse next Friday. Guys, you don't miss it because we are going to discuss understanding neglect in real life cases. We'll be discussing how neglect impacts both children and adults and what legal protections they have
Now, actually,
available.
that's going to be a very interesting topic because neglect is happening anywhere, anytime, but most of the time, you may not even know it's a neglect already, or and why is it important to know if there's already a neglect on the part of the other spouse, or neglect of a person? Why is it important for that person to know?
Yes, before we go, Attorney Eileen, there's a Facebook inquiry here. How can we contact you, Attorney Eileen, from Bonds the
Well,
Seco?
if you have any questions for me related to this topic, you can always, like I said, post your comments here on the Facebook page and YouTube channel of Lawin Media Network, Lawin uh, SocMed, or you can just go to my Facebook account. That's gonna be my name, Aileen Ligot Dizon, and send me a message there. Or you can go to our website, which is Dizon dot esq, or dizonlawfirm.com. I hope I'm saying it right. Okay. Yes, so thank you, Nesca, for this wonderful discussion. We hope to see you again next Friday, same time, same channel, same place. Mabuhay. Good evening, everybody. Have a great weekend.